All right, the recording is started. So this is the June 18th, 2019 Rook Community Meeting. And we will go ahead and start with a checkup on our current milestones, patch releases, and progress on 1.1. So in terms of the latest patch release, Travis, do you want to give an update on that?
Yeah, so we had the 1.0.2 release last Friday, or was that a week ago already? I'm losing track. So that's out. It's been pretty solid. There are definitely a couple more issues that we want to get patched at some point. I don't know how urgent they are, but I haven't reviewed the board this morning to see if, what's needed is there, but there have been a couple instances of those, like high CPU, OSDs not running if you're on it again.
I think the OSD problem is one of the most severe.
Exactly.
I think there are like 10 or so people having commented that they have the same issue. So,
right, and that one is dependent on a fix in Nautilus. So we'll get
12.4
our backport ready, and even the release, the 0.3 release out, and then as soon as the next Nautilus release is out, we would be able to take advantage of that fix. And otherwise, yeah, I'm not sure if there are fixes for other providers, but it looks like mostly staff at this point. Is anybody on from like EdgeFS or others that want to comment on the 1.0 releases? I don't think I see them here.
Do you remember any recent discussion about 3273 for enabling metadata only in EdgeFS? Looks like you reopened it for a backport.
Let's see.
That looks like that was already in 1.0.2 though, huh?
Oh, maybe that one just needs to be closed. Because I don't think there was another one from EdgeFS I've seen that must be okay already. I can double check that after this.
Okay. And this pull request here has been merged as well, it looks like.
Yeah, even though the keyword is in the backport PR, it doesn't seem to close it after it's reopened for some reason. So I missed cleaning those up. Yep.
Okay, cool. So then continuing to follow up on the OSD issue you guys were referencing, sounds appropriate. I don't see any other must follow up on today type of critical issues here.
Well, we have the PR with the fix, so we can merge it soon and backport it for 103. Once 14.2.2 is out, then we will have that support in Rook before. Yeah, I guess 103 might come out before 14.2.2. I don't know. 14.2.2 has been lagging, so.
Yeah, and we might hold off unless there's something more urgent for the 0.3 release until it looks like the .2 release will be out or just closer to the timeline. And just in case other fixes come up, we can batch them together for 0.3.
I think the sooner the better for this one. Because if we wait for 14.2.2, then we will have to rebase our image on 14.2.2. Well, we'll have to do this anyways, but I guess.
Right.
Yeah.
We still want the 0.3 release first, but if it's within it doesn't help if it's more than a couple days before that, right? That's all. In case other fixes come up.
Okay. So are we saying that's going to be in 103? Sorry.
The SDN fix Yeah, we want it in 103.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Okay. Any no more issues to discuss here then on 1.0 backport?
None from my side.
Okay. Is there much to discuss on the current 1.1 board, or is I think that there's still probably some scrubbing or cleanup that needs to be done to get all the issues included in the milestone and in appropriate states in the board?
Right. I don't think the scrubbing has really happened yet either. And oh, did I take an action item last time to update the roadmap? I was going to do that. I don't think I did. Anyway, so we still need to update the roadmap for sure for 1.1. So I'll get back on that. And then at the same time, scrubbing of the 1.1 issues.
Sounds fantastic. All right. So we can move on to the community topics here. The first one that we had on the list here is that a new change approval process has been ratified and merged to master. So you can read more about the details here for the process, and it's linked from the agenda document today. But basically this model is modeled after the Kubernetes upstream change approval process. And this enables, we've been talking about this for a while, but this enables the storage providers to have more autonomy and independence on getting their changes merged into master. So we have a set of reviewers and approvers, and so which expands the list of folks that can review pull requests and help facilitate get them merged into master. So this will unblock a lot of the storage provider teams from waiting for a pull request review from the maintainer team. So I think that this was going to help the velocity on a lot of the storage providers' work. So if there's, we'll start implementing this process today since it's now been ratified and merged into master. And there's some automation that we would like to improve in the future that I've captured in 3320 around potentially using the Kubernetes prowl system to have bots that enforce and assign pull requests to users and automatically merge and do all that interesting fancy stuff. But right now it's a manual process that is completely described in the contributing guide.
Yeah, I really see the bot as being a critical piece of the next step so that we can make sure storage providers are controlling their areas, and proper approval is needed for common areas. Or anyway, it'll just be a good thing to have the bots, because right now it is manual and it will require people respecting their areas of ownership, even though nothing technically prevents someone from clicking the merge button in another area. Right now it just needs to be respected effectively. And I'm not worried about it, just pointing out that it is manual right now.
Yes, it is a manual process right now. So there is, now that it's been ratified and merged to master, which was just like an hour or so ago, the next step here is to create the teams with the correct permissions and add members to those teams as defined here. So I need to create these two teams right after this meeting here. I can do that and add the right people as defined in the code owners file, add them to those teams. And so then that will give them permission to, to merge and have right access, and all the right things will be there. So I have that captured here as a follow-up as well. Cool. So I'm glad that that's in master, and Apologies that it took a little bit longer than I had intended, but it is there, and this will hopefully relieve some pain for everybody now. Mike, Thingy, do you have an addition to the agenda item here about San Diego, where I live?
Yeah. Hey, everyone.
Hey, Mike.
Hey.
Hey.
So we're looking at, the subcommunity is looking at putting together an event that would be co-located with KubeCon San Diego. And I think that the content that we had at Cephalacon for Barcelona around Rook complemented quite well. And so I wanted to pitch to the Rook community of an idea of having a joint Rook and Ceph Day along with KubeCon.
So would that be like in addition to a Cephalacon, or would it be like a subset of Cephalacon, or what's the relationship there, Mike?
It won't be a Cephalacon, mostly because putting on a Cephalacon could be really costly with the multiple tracks and getting everything organized. So instead, we're looking at just doing, we typically, our more smaller events are Ceph Days, which are a one-track full day event with content. And but this one in particular, we would be pitching it as both a Rook and Ceph Day. So it won't just be just Ceph, but people can expect more Rook content there in balance with Ceph.
So meaning other storage providers might present, or just so Rook Day?
Yeah, we would be open to that as well. So it would be something that we would organize from the Ceph Foundation standpoint, getting sponsors and whatnot to get together for putting the venue and the catering and whatnot together. So, but as I mentioned before, as opposed to just a Ceph Day, I mean, if we pitch it both as a Rook and Ceph Day, it would be more than just like say one talk on Rook. There would be more talks on Rook. So.
Yeah, well, I mean, with the growing interest in Rook and the community, I think there'd be a good response to that. I don't see.
And would that be one of the like official co-located events there? It says co-located here, so I'm assuming that's the path you were going to take, Mike, or thinking about taking.
Probably for this event, we won't be going through the Linux Foundation. It'll be something that I would organize, and then also need a little bit of help from the people that do live in San Diego that can kind of help me with some ideas for venues or checking things out if something gets picked out. But otherwise, it'll just be funded through the Ceph Foundation, so sponsors could go pay through the Ceph Foundation. And it'll just be, like I mentioned, like a one-day event. We do a bunch of Ceph Days already in different countries, but as opposed to this just being a Ceph Day, it'll be both a Rook and Ceph Day. So we'll be looking for more content on Rook.
Oh, okay, I got you. So it's so like with the official co-located events, like there's a whole process, and you have to get the room on site there and stuff, but this could be like a more casual thing, like at another venue in San Diego, somewhere near downtown or near the convention center and stuff like that, and just kind of like any other Ceph Day, but more have Rook more involved too.
Yes,
cool.
And probably we'll look at maybe doing it the day before KubeCon San Diego, and then we also have John, who did the Rook and Ceph tutorial at Cephalacon Barcelona. He also lives in San Diego, so we can definitely use his content as well for putting on the tutorial. We could kind of talk about how we want to structure that with a one-day event, or if we want to do like tutorial first and then the sessions the next day. We could talk about that later, but we definitely have interest of people that want to put content into this event. And I think it would benefit both projects to have something located there.
Yeah, that sounds pretty cool, Mike. And is that a John Studeris that you?
Yeah,
Yeah. Okay, cool. I just had lunch with him last week. I know exactly. He runs some meetups here in San Diego that I've spoken at recently
cool.
about Rook. He's a good guy, and
Yeah.
that'd be cool. Yeah, definitely have him looped in that too. That sounds interesting. Is there, you've done some other events before, Mike. How do you get a sense ahead of time before like officially committing to an event on like what the demand for it is? Do you have like a process to kind of figure that out or estimate that?
Oh, the demand on what the registration attendance would be
Yeah,
like?
yeah.
I don't really have any figured out process for that. We've put on events in different locations, and I kind of have a feel of like how successful those events were based on, just previously putting them on in those locations. I will say that one thing that we did notice from the attendance for Cephalcon was that we actually just benefited straight off of standalone registrations, as opposed to registrations that came through people registering through KubeCon and then also adding on Cephalcon. So there were more standalone registrations, which I thought was interesting. So people actually went out of their way from different countries to attend Cephalcon. So I will say that we kind of have a little bit of traction there. I feel like we'll have the same benefit. We've been having a lot of people asking for a Cephalcon to be put on in the US. I don't think we're quite ready for that yet, just because of dealing with visas and things like that in the US right now. But a CEF Day co-located with KubeCon would definitely be doable through the budget that we normally have for these events. And typically for the size for these events, we look at about 150 people, and we're pretty good about filling up those spots for these one-day events. If we want to grow that, we can do that as well. We just have to kind of talk about the budget and figure that out in terms of how many people we're expecting, and then pitch a price to the potential sponsors.
Cool. Very, very cool. It sounds like this idea has some merit, and there's some interest in it and such too, and it could be pretty fun too. So I think it sounds pretty cool. Thanks for bringing this up, Mike.
Cool. So what would be the next step for me to work with the community on this sort of event? I know that there's a Google Forms that is used by the community. Would it be appropriate for me to pitch more details about the information there and see who's interested? And
I think in terms of reach, scope of that type of messaging, that Slack is going to be a way better take for you. I think the mailing list, the Google Forms mailing list thing is fairly low traffic. So you can feel free to pitch that on Slack. That's perfectly acceptable, and get some in, see who's engaged or interest in stuff like that. That's great.
Cool. Okay, so I mean, do I have the blessing from the maintainers to go ahead and continue forward with this initiative then?
Yeah, as far as I'm concerned, Mike, yeah, it sounds neat.
Okay, great.
Cool.
Hey, Travis, you had a item here.
Yep. I just wanted to point out that we've been discussing this since KubeCon with a number of people kind of offline. I've started a document that some of you may have seen, just to bring up that I don't feel like the document is anywhere really close to what it needs to be, but it is in progress, and they're kind of the high-level questions just working through, like, well, what really is the Rook Charter, and what does it mean to encourage storage providers to join, and how can we build and grow that community around storage providers is kind of the ultimate question. And then there's other questions that fall out of it, like how can storage providers have their own ship schedule, or do they need their own ship schedule? Do we split the repos? Kind of where my head is right now, I'd like to not split the repos because that has different repercussions. But anyway, there's a bunch of questions to work through, and so if you have thoughts on it, let's talk on the overall. Rook has a bright future, and just wanting to do what it needs, what it takes to grow, continue to grow the project, get it to graduation, etc. So I don't know how much we need to talk about here today, but just FYI, it definitely is in progress, and some questions to answer there.
Yeah, it's definitely been some good discussion so far on that write-up, Travis.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Any other community topics that people wanted to discuss here that were not added to the agenda document? Okay. One topic there is that I've never seen Sebastian with glasses before, so that's a new look.
Yeah.
Everyone's eyes are getting worse.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, actually that's true, because this afternoon I was at the occupational doctor, and I lost a little bit on both eyes. So yeah,
Welcome to older age, Sebastian.
Yeah.
He's not that old yet. He's not anywhere close.
No.
Yeah.
But the more wisdom you get, right?
Right. Definitely getting wiser. Just your eyes. You got a long time for your good eyes.
All right.
We'll see. All right. Let's see. So Jose opened up a pull request recently about the device set proposal design. And Jose, I think you're on the call here today. And thank you very much for incorporating the early feedback around that this functionality could be useful for in a general sense in all storage providers. So I really appreciate you taking that feedback in. Do you want to kind of just give us a quick overview of what a device set is or what it captures? And then, we could follow up more on the pull request itself. But yeah, if you want to just give a quick overview, that'd be great, Jose.
Hi. So, all right. Based on a comment made just recently by Blaine, which I agree with, I think it would be helpful to describe this more accurately as a storage device, as a storage class device set. Because the purpose of this construct is to consume PVCs intended for underlying storage via storage classes. That is its ultimate goal. And the idea here is to slightly abstract away the notion of an underlying storage device, such that the main thing you would do is simply specify a count of how many devices you want in this set, the capacity that each device should have in that set, and the storage class those devices are provisioned from. Now, obviously, this is mostly targeted for cloud environments where Kubernetes allows you to dynamically provision remotely attachable storage like AWS EBS volumes. However, thanks to recent-ish developments from SIG Storage, there is a notion of there does exist a local storage provisioner, which allows you to specify PVs for local devices and provision them via a storage class. So the notion there is that you would statically define the PVs ahead of time, put them behind a storage class, and then you could provision PVCs against that storage class to consume the devices as local volumes.
Jose, have you heard any recent updates about if the local volume provisioner would get dynamic provisioning enabled? I've always thought that's been kind of a weak point of it so far, or at least from a usability perspective, that it makes it harder to use local volumes, is that you have to statically provision them. Has there been any update that you've heard on dynamic provisioning?
No update at this time, in particular just because it's a really nasty problem.
Yeah.
So as I mentioned, the core use case for this is cloud environments. I'm simply leaving the option open to use storage classes backed by local PVs if a user wants to simply manage their devices that way.
Right. If you're the underlying thing here is storage classes, then it's, that's an abstraction that it doesn't really matter where that storage is coming from. It could be local devices or, something else.
Right. In particular, AWS has a notion of local ephemeral storage, where the instance is provisioned with storage devices already attached, but of course that would only show up as local devices on the node. So you could specify, you could either statically provision local PVs against the devices you're provisioning, or if you're wrapping this up into some broader app that has knowledge of the instances you're creating, you could write a small controller to automatically create those local PVs and configure them to provision against a storage class. So the use case of local PVs via storage classes is tedious, is somewhat tedious as it stands now, but can be used to implement further automation on top of it in certain use cases.
Right. And that makes sense.
Now, see, your comment, I initially took it and said, yes, this could currently make sense to just provision it or to abstract it away so that it could be used across multiple Rook operators if they so chose to implement it. Then I had a thought, and thinking is dangerous. So the main issue here is that for Rook Ceph in particular, I was naively unaware that you can define multiple OSDs per storage device. And it would be best to maintain, I think it would be almost best or even required to be able to maintain that functionality in storage class device sets.
How is that specified today exactly?
As part of the OSD configuration, I believe, there is a field that says OSDs per device.
Yeah, and Jared, specifically, that's in the config section of under storage, where we can put any key value pair for properties. So storage providers can put whatever properties they want in there. Right, OSDs per device is one of those.
There is also something from the Ceph project itself. It's called drive groups, which supports having OSDs on multiple drives and the other way around. So it's called drive groups defined in the orchestrator. I think it's a bit more flexible. Might be worth looking into.
Right. But yeah, it's discussion of these kinds of features and ideas that make me think it might not be useful to try and make this generic for other Rook operators. But if there could be such a design where we could just leave, similar to what the Ceph cluster CR has now, if we could just leave a config section of arbitrary string pairs for storing key value configuration, then each operator could individually specify or read certain or whatever options it wants from that list of string pairs. The only reason I wouldn't want to do that is because it is anathema to my current understanding of Kubernetes design philosophies. which I don't know how much is desired to keep that in Rook, right? Because Rook is not Kubernetes. It does not need to adhere to those design principles. All I know is that Kubernetes would rather avoid arbitrary fields of strings wherever possible.
Yeah, you definitely see that on storage classes, which can make things kind of, it's nice to have that flexibility, but it's also can make, you know, provisioning a bit difficult if you have, you know, if you want to express more complicated types. But yeah, that storage classes at least do that, you know, arbitrary string key value pair configuration style.
Yeah. So there's something to keep in mind. To tackle this, since I don't want to, you know, since this could eat up a good chunk of time, there's currently a thought to hold a meeting tomorrow to further deeply discuss the implementation details of this design. And if so, there is a current Ceph community meeting called the Container Huddle, and we were thinking about using that meeting time to go into this.
Yeah, and we wanted to open it up to, you know, not just a Ceph meeting. It's let's discuss the device set design. So others are certainly welcome to join, and we'll get the meeting, or at least the BlueJeans link out there for others who want to join. So it'll be a half hour before this meeting tomorrow.
And we're planning on advertising it at least as a comment in the PR itself. So anyone can just subscribe to the PR and follow the link there tomorrow.
Yeah, that sounds like a great approach, definitely. Cool, Jose. Yeah, thank you for this effort so far, and you know, taking the feedback and working through the design. I appreciate that.
Yep, that's it from my end.
Cool, cool. All right, that's the end of what we had listed on the agenda document. Or is there any other topics that anybody wants to bring up before we adjourn for the day? All righty, then we will see each other, or this group, in another 2 weeks. And thanks for joining, everybody.
Okay, thanks everyone.